And now, without further delay, let's begin today's event, sponsored by Effisoft, Divvy, Rippling, and Sage Intacct, and hosted by Accounting Today. And I'd like to introduce your moderator for today, and that is Veronica Arrowsmith. Veronica, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Adam, and welcome everyone again to today's web session. We're going to be talking about the top apps for accountants. And just up front, I just wanted to mention how we selected them. We did ask a panel of experts from our readership, so that's how we collected them today. But before we jump in, I do want to talk about just the CPE requirements, just to get that out of the way for you guys. So Arisent, our parent company, is pleased to be able to offer CPE for this web session. It is imperative that you adhere to the following instructions to obtain that CPE credit. First, you must be in attendance for a minimum of 50 minutes. That's 50 minutes. No credit will be awarded from watching the replay. And Accounting Today is not responsible for late arrivals or for connections issues. If you do have any issues, refreshing your browser should fix them in most cases. So just do that if you have any issues. Secondly, there will be some polling questions throughout the session just to make sure we're involved and engaged and paying attention. So just make sure that you answer all of the polling questions that pop up on your screen. You can't miss them. We will draw your attention to them. Thirdly, once you've completed the above, please allow 3 business days from today to get your email from simplecert.net that will contain instructions on how to download your CPE certificate. Just add simplecert.net to your safe sender list just in case so it doesn't go to your junk mail. All right, and without further ado, just a quick word from our sponsors and we'll jump in.
With the powerful tools of Sage Intacct, you can automate your quote to cash and close processing. You're about to have a lot more time on your hands. What you do with it is up to you.
You finished?
Yep. Let's get that ring of Elfman Donglefleur.
This is gonna be awesome.
Sage Intacct. Get your life back.
Thank you, Sage Intacct. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself and my co-moderator, Dan Hood. So I'll let Dan Hood go first. He's our chief editor. Dan, let's hear a little bit about you.
All right. Thanks, Veronica. As you said, I'm Dan Hood. I'm editor-in-chief of Accounting Today. I've been covering accounting for about 20 years and been doing this podcast, this webinar that we do every year for the past 3 or 4 years. And it's fascinating because the importance of apps and how they've grown as pretty much crucial tools for accountants as they expand all the different things they do and all the different ways they're automating their practices. So I like this webinar that we do every year. I should also say, in addition to, we pick the apps by reaching out to a panel of experts that we know, people we know are really knowledgeable in terms of apps, how they pick apps. They're really power users of them. We also want to know which apps you like. So we're going to encourage you in the Q&A panel to put your favorite app. Just choose one if you can for whatever. Doesn't matter whether it's an accounting-related issue, business-related, whether it's personal, whatever it is, your favorite app. And if you can just give us one word as to what kind of app it is, you know, whether it's like I said, it's an accounting app, it's an AP app, it's an inventory app, or if it's a vertical, name the industry. Just throw those in there. We'll share as many as we get towards the end of the session. But one of the great things about the accounting profession is the way people share information, the way practitioners share what they're doing and how they're succeeding and the tools they're using. So put those in the Q&A panel throughout the session, and we'll give you a list of them at the end. And then I should also say you can also put questions in the Q&A panel, actual questions, and we'll answer those at the end or as we go through the session as appropriate. And that's me.
Thank you, Dan, and I already see that the app suggestions are pouring in. I'm Veronica Arrowsmith. I'm the technology editor for Accounting Today, so I write about all things technology pertaining to accountants, and I echo what Dan said about loving this particular webinar because apps and the tech stack are sort of the backbone sometimes of a firm. So we also have a guest speaker coming up, which I'm very excited about. Dawn Brolin will be familiar to some of you. So I'll let her talk about herself because she's fantastic. There she is. Dawn, let's welcome you and hear about you here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dawn Brolin with Powerful Accounting out of Windham, Connecticut. I'm a CPA, a certified fraud examiner. I'm also an author. I wrote the book right here called The Designated Motivator. Super fun, but even more exciting is that the book Designated Motivator for Accounting Professionals will be out this fall, late October, early November, and I'm excited about that because it's kind of my way of giving back to the industry to help my fellow practitioners kind of get their head wrapped around apps and how to run their firm and the highs and the lows, and we'll talk a little bit about that stuff today. But I'm always honored to be here. Anytime I can be a part of what Rannika and Dan are doing, I'm always in. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Dawn, and we'll pull you in to comment on some of the apps specifically that you do use, so we're excited for that. And so to our audience, before we jump in, we have our first polling question sort of to set us up to see where our audience is at with apps. So here's our first polling question. You should see it on your screen. And that question is, how much say do you have in selecting apps at your practice? The options are, I do not currently participate in the selection process, or the process is collaborative and I have some say, or I am in charge of building the tech stack at my practice. Choose whichever selection most closely resembles your experience. And the way that you select your answer is you click that round button to the left of your answer, and then make sure you click the submit button on the bottom so we count your answer. And of course, these are just anonymous questions. We're just trying to get a sense of our audience, that's all. So I'll leave it up here for a few seconds while everybody gets a chance to submit their answer. I see that they're rolling in now. And echoing what Dan said earlier, don't forget that we have our Q&A panel, that if you have any questions as we speak, please feel free to put them in there. We could address them as we go if it makes sense, or we'll address them at the end.
Did the poll get launched? It got launched? Yeah, some people are seeing a few things in there. Cool.
Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and count this down in 5 seconds to close the poll. So everybody make sure you get your answer in. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everybody. I am closing the poll now. Okay, it looks like more people, so about 45%, are actually totally in charge of building the tech stack at your practice, which is really interesting. And then it's a spread between the other two. And actually, quite a high percentage, almost a quarter, do not participate at all in the selection process. Also interesting. What about you, Dawn, at your practice? Is it collaborative, or how do you do that over there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want everyone's input. And one experience that I had was way back in the day, if you've ever experienced this. I had my employee, prior to time tracking, the real time tracking, like QuickBooks time tracking, prior T-sheets, which I love, they would use Excel and they would track their time. And my staff would be like, this is so painful. I track it all in Excel, then I have to put it into QuickBooks after the fact because I can't log in and out of QuickBooks to book my time as I go. And so I took the feedback from my staff and said, I got to go find a time tracking app. And so I went to the next conference, Scaling New Heights. There was T-sheets, done, solved the pain point, right? Solved for the problem. So it's really not just about the pain points that I'm having, but also those that are in my staff who say, I appreciate that you got this app for us, but really it's just not doing its job. I'm frustrated by this, this, and this. Okay, let's go see if we can find another app that can solve for all of the things we're looking for. So we definitely have a collaborative attitude at Powerful Accounting.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dawn. And I'll let Dan take it away to talk about our first app. Dan, you're on mute.
That's going to make it hard for everyone to hear me. Sorry about that.
Did someone do that on purpose? That's mean.
I muted myself. I didn't want you to hear me drinking. On the other hand, it's possible that people may mute me. Anyways, so the first app we're going to talk about is Carbon, and it's in the workflow category. I think everybody knows with the disruption to offices over the past year and a half, people working remotely, it's been more important than ever started to be able to keep track of your workflow, where things are. You can't walk down the hall and talk to somebody. You can't go check on something. It's not easy to get communication. So workflow, tracking, keeping track of all those things, keeping track of all the extra work the firms have been doing has been crucial. And so apps like Carbon are pretty crucial. I'm not surprised that Carbon was one of the ones that our panel picked. But it's worth noting at this point that in a lot of these categories, there are plenty of apps. There's not just one. Carbon is a veteran. They've been around for a long time. They're tried and tested. A lot of people love them. But there are other workflow tools, some new, some old, some been around for a long time, some are new, and that's the important point is that there are a lot of apps in most categories, and just because we're picking one, just because we're naming one, doesn't mean it's the only one, and it doesn't mean necessarily that it'll will work for you. But like you said, Carbon has been around for a long time. They're tried and tested. They offer a lot of different capabilities within it, everything from workflow automation, project management, team collaboration, client management, performance analytics, all sorts of stuff like that. They also now, they're the power behind the Intuit practice management tool for tax professionals. So that's really expanding their reach. So it's certainly worth a look. But in general, we're saying, you want to find a workflow tool. Carbon is a great one. There are others out there. It might be one that fits your firm better. Dawn, if I'm not mistaken, you use Carbon, right?
I love Carbon, and Joe's question that's sitting in the Q&A right now, he asked about best app for scheduling work and things like that. What I love about Carbon is that it does integrate. We'll answer a couple questions all at one time. Carbon does integrate with other applications such as Liscio, such as Lacert. I know that there are others that I'm not thinking of. SmartVault's another one, but they do integrate with other applications. And Ian Basin, who's like the head of the whole world over there, he's always open to integrations. And I think that that's really key when you're selecting your apps, is that you're thinking about integrating with other software, because you don't want 10 standalone softwares. You want to be able to click and be able to push information into one app into the other. Carbon has a great triage system. So your emails come in the inbox. You can tag emails to a specific, let's say an 1120. You're working on a tax return and you're asking questions of the client. You can tag that email string to the work in Carbon. So when you go to the work to start doing the return, all of the communications between you or your staff and the client are in one place. It's just a great way to organize emails and be able to have them in one place. It also allows you to do things like tasks and have different set up some templates that say, okay, when I do an 1120S, these are all the steps I take. And so having that ability to create task lists that are repetitive. In a lot of tax returns, at least the normal process of onboarding the tax return, have we sent the 8879, check the box off? Yes, we have. Now we know we're waiting for the 8879. So there's different ways with Carbon. I absolutely love it, but yes, it does integrate, and it is an awesome project management and workflow tool.
There you go. All right. Because we got so many people have already put in a ton of great apps, listed them in the Q&A. Keep doing that if you want. Feel free to don't limit yourself to just one if you've got more that you're excited about. But since we're on this topic, I thought I'd throw out. Somebody mentioned Toggl for time tracking, that they really like that for that purpose, and someone else mentioned Alteryx, Alteryx. Sorry, Alter. YX for workflow automation. So just throw that out. Those are apps that some people in the audience really dig. This is like the 1960s. I apologize. They think they're great tools, and they like to use them. Radhika, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Oh, no worries. That's a good idea, to call out apps in the same category as they're sent in. That's a good idea. And somebody did ask, and Dawn, you answered about tax tools that integrate with Carbon, and you mentioned Lacert as one of them. Lacert Tax, which is now from Intuit, is a good fit for firms that offer a variety of tax-related services. And because it is owned by Intuit, and I know Dawn is a QuickBooks user, that's a really useful integration. Of course, QuickBooks has the largest market share, and our readers liked its easy navigation features and the worksheet-based data entry interface. Dawn, I know you really like Lacert as well, and especially the integration with Carbon. Do you want to speak to Lacert a little bit here?
Yeah, Lacert, I love Lacert in that, I was a Pro Series user previously. I also did use ProConnect in the beginning. I just found my two tax partners, so I have two tax partners I work with, and they really loved Lacert, and I had no problem moving to it based on my use of those other software solutions. But what I love about Lacert is that you can literally print to SmartVault from Lacert. And from there, when you have Lacert integrating with SmartVault, number one, we onboard our clients immediately with SmartVault. They know how to use SmartVault. They can get their own tax returns. They can upload all of their tax documents. We start them from day one. When they come to us the first time, we have them upload prior returns to SmartVault. They're automatically learning and understanding how to work with SmartVault. And so I love Lacert for that purpose. Also, of course, Lacert updating Carbon with the statuses of the return. And we can memorize reports, if you will, saying, okay, what are the various statuses, who's where, who's ready to e-file, who's passed validation, who's been rejected, those kind of things that it helps us really monitor what happens with our clients. So Lacert is an awesome tool, and the fact that it goes to SmartVault and then SmartVault to DocuSign, which I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point, makes my life click, 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 people.
Awesome. All right, Dan, DocuSign.
All right. I remember to take myself off mute at this point. Again, this is another category, DocuSign and document management, crucial. You got to keep track of where all your documents are, particularly as they're all now, the vast majority of them are turning digital. You can't keep track of them the way we used to write the folder. You carried the folder around and had a piece of paper on the top listed where it went. Now it's all remote. The document management systems are, by now, most accounting firms have adopted one or the other of them. Again, there are others, but DocuSign was the one our panelists really like. You want to have e-signature capabilities. That's one of the big things that's going into a lot of these apps nowadays, so we want to make sure they have it. This also, I should point out, the DocuSign has strong integration with Microsoft and Salesforce. This goes to Dawn's point about integration. Integration is critical. There are some things where integration is absolutely critical. You got to have it, and then there's some where it opens you up so much to new capabilities. I think this is one of those ones where you start looking into things like Salesforce, and you're reaching out to that kind of app and linking that in with all your tools. That just takes you to a whole new level. So. DocuSign we mentioned. I should also mention, someone in the audience mentioned that they still say "I'm jazzed" when they're excited about something, and I thought that was great. So I'm going to stop saying people dig things and say people are jazzed about things, because I think that's a great phrase. Anyways,
so DocuSign.
I know John, you use this one. Sorry, this is another one I want to bring you in on.
Yeah, so we use DocuSign for all of our e-signatures. I saw somebody said Adobe Sign. Yep, that's absolutely one of them. There are other apps like Liscio and Canopy. They also have their own e-signature capabilities. We find that our workflow for tax purposes, printing from our tax solution into SmartVault and then being able to send 8879s, invoices, by the way, sending whatever signature docs we need to with the knowledge-based authentication that we need for the 8879. So we go into the connected desktop in SmartVault and we send the 8879 right from their SmartVault folders. So that's hard to say, SmartVault folders. And then what happens is when they sign it, you get an email that says, hey, your document has been returned to SmartVault. By the way, I never touch it twice. Comes back to SmartVault. It lets you know they signed the 8879 and they initial the invoice. And then guess where I go from there? Right to QBO. Bang. Charge them for the invoice. Everybody's happy. And it kind of finishes our tax process. We process the payment, then we go e-file the return, because I never process e-file a return without getting paid.
And speaking of getting paid, our next app, it helps with that, Quotient. It's a quote building app. This was new to me, and I was very excited to see their very aesthetically pleasing templates that they have, which is why I put an example here. But it's a quote building app which allows you to create custom template quotes that, as I say here, they look very nice. Dawn, do you use this app for specific verticals, or just how do you use this app in your practice? We use
Quotient. I found Quotient through another colleague January of 2020. And I was so impressed with how simple it was. I feel like sometimes apps, they go into lanes they don't belong, right? So we're doing project management and we're doing billing and we can do AR. And it's like, whoa, okay, I get that, but you're not the best at it. So I found Quotient because it was so easy. Every single tax return that goes out every single year that I'm going to do a tax return for someone, they get a quote. And within the quote is the engagement letter. So we put the language in there. If you accept this quote, you are also accepting the engagement. What I love about that is as soon as they accept that quote, I can push that quote into QuickBooks as an invoice. I never have to I don't go create invoices. That's a waste of time. And then we also do it for if we do pick up like IRS representation, for instance, I take a retainer right up front. It's a $5,000 retainer. They get a quote for that, and they say, and here are the other the hourly rates that we do for representation, because we don't do it for a package. And so they get that quote. We use it for everything, no matter what we're doing. People get a quote. We want them to know this is what it's going to cost, and off they go. And people love it. We get notifications when they accept the quote. It just makes our workflow go so great. And I know there's others. Fathom's another one. That's another great quoting software solution. And I'm sure there are others I haven't thought of that are probably out there. But Quotient is, Practice Ignition. I found Practice Ignition just to be a little hefty for me. I felt like Quotient was just simple enough. I didn't need anything real fancy. And so I just happened to choose Quotient, and I really do love it. It's a great solution. And the fact that it creates those invoices for me make me very happy.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for choosing a simpler solution, even that has less features than maybe a different option, because you don't need those and you don't need something as clunky. All right, great. Thank you for those thoughts. Yeah, Dan, take it away.
Yeah, Snagit. I love this one. This is one of the things that's weird about this is people get excited about these apps. But I think this one's a great one. It's a screenshot program. It allows you to capture stuff from video displays and then add notes, annotations, use it for training purposes, basically create sort of training documents that you can share with other people. And I love the idea of that. It's one of those things that over the past year and a half, we've realized these things are crucial and they're going to be useful even after we get back into the office, but particularly as you have more of a remote environment where you can't just wander down the hall and be like, hey, how do I do that thing again? Or, hey, can you show me that thing again? This enables you to sort of create documents that you can hold on to, you can share in the future. You know what you're going to need them going forward for whatever processes you have. For some of the other apps you use, it may be, but for some it may be for your main tools that you use on a regular basis. It can also be for all kinds of things like office processes. How do I fill out that form? How do I get this, reimbursed for this? Anything like that. It's just a great tool for capturing processes and can't be there in person directly with the person, and for keeping it for long term, so that when somebody goes, hey, how do I do this? You go here, and you're all done. So I love that. I think it's any tools that offer that kind of training and learning experience, I think are super valuable, particularly as the office sort of atomizes and we all get spread out where we are. We're not always in the office. And as people need to get up to speed much more quickly on everything, right? Everyone knows the pace of change going on in the accounting profession and pretty much around the economy is much faster, which means that people need to be able to get up to speed faster, which means they're not always going to be able to wait until someone can take the time to show them something. So having these kind of documents, having these kind of records, having this kind of training available on an ad hoc basis is pretty crucial. And that is Snagit. So I love that one. But I'm going to hand it back to Veronica.
Yeah, and cybersecurity as a category is really important, more important than ever. LastPass is a password manager that stores encrypted passwords online. There are other apps for this. LastPass came loaded up to the top as a favorite. The standard version of this app comes with a web interface, but you can also plug it in to various web browsers and apps for most smartphones. But like I said about cybersecurity, I've been talking to a lot of technology people in the tech space, and this is a top of mind concern for them, especially as we've all gone remote already. And it's just become all the more important. And times like these are peak times for cyber criminals, times of vulnerability, times of stress. And this is why we should all be taking password security at least, but general cybersecurity very seriously. John, do you have any comments on cybersecurity in general or LastPass or any other apps like that?
I tend to have comments about everything. I don't know why. I love talking about this stuff. It's just my life. We do use LastPass for all of our clients' passwords. So everything that has to do with the client, whether it's bank accounts or credit card accounts or whatever it may be, logins to QuickBooks we have in there if they're a desktop user, all those kind of things. So we use LastPass for the clients, and I personally use Password Keeper for all of my Don Brolin's World, which is pretty big, so it seems pretty big. So I use Password Keeper for that. But I do want to make a comment about security. And one thing that people may not be thinking about, if you own a PTIN, if you own a PTIN number, and you've checked the box that, yes, I'm in compliance, if you haven't done a security exam or report, there's a company called SecureX, and I don't think that they're on our list, but they're a great company that will basically, if you have cyber insurance, you're marking off that you have all of these policies in place and all these things in place, and SecureX will help you get to that point. It's a couple $1,000s to do the full analysis, but it's kind of required by your insurance, and IRS requires it if you own a PTIN. So I just want you to think about that. It's secure with an X at the end. Make sure you're covering yourself, because listen, all it takes is one hack to close you down and finish you, because you have to notify the clients, they're probably not going to stay with you. So just keep that in mind. Cybersecurity you've got to be on top of it.
Thank you. And I'll just mention here that Dawn is an expert in fraud and forensic accounting, so she really knows what she's talking about here.
Yeah, get it done.
Right.
Get it done.
While we're making these sort of points, I should also point out that this webinar is in no way a promotion of the Patriots. It doesn't say anything about Horizon's opinion regarding the Patriots. Dawn's fan, but we have no opinions in any way. So.
And I will just say that I love the Bucks. You took Daddy Brady with you, and he's doing great down there with our boy Gronky, and that's awesome. I'm happy for you guys, and I still root for you. But listen, I don't jump just because we suck right now. Sorry, inappropriate language, but we do. But it's okay. We're all going to be all right. But anyway, designated motivator. Just saying, we're going to be all right.
Well, again, not a compensated endorsement in any way.
That's correct.
She doesn't get free tickets for that. Our next app, and this is a particularly cool one. I've been following this one since it was first launched. Lissio. And part of the thing was I'm always sort of hard pressed to describe what it is, but it's a great platform for interacting with your clients. It is a combination of document management, a client communication tool, a client interchange tool. There's some workflow in there. It does a lot of things. One of the things it really does really well is make it easy to onboard clients, right? It just makes every interaction with your clients much smoother, much easier. It gives you a place to do that, a single place for them to send documents, for you to request documents, for them to all the things that go into bringing on a new client to your firm. You can automate them, place them in there, and manage it through there. Gives you all kinds of ways to communicate with clients. It's a sort of a one-stop shop for all the different things that you're probably managing through 15 different apps, right? You got through your tax management and your workflow system and this other system, and all those things where you're requesting documents and trying to get into clients. This offers you that sort of single platform, a single face of your firm. It's been around for a while. Like I said, another one of those tried and tested ones. And I think, Dawn, you're into Lissio. Is that all right?
Yeah, we actually just implemented this summer, and that's one of the great things is we revisit our tech stack during, throughout, and after tax season, and we find gaps where we're missing, or maybe we could just do this better. And so we implemented Lissio, which talks to Carbon. Okay, Lissio also talks to QBO, so you're putting people in one place, and then you're pushing and pulling data to and from. And we found Lissio to be, like, the clients really love it. They get an app on their phone, they can snap pictures of documents, we can request different things from them. Guess what? You're not giving out your personal cell phone number, which I don't know if any of you are doing that, because guess what? Losing my mind with that. I actually went and got a second phone because I was sick and tired of being on my boat or at softball practice and people texting me and wanting an immediate response, because that's when they text you, when they want something immediately. Lissio will allow you to manage that activity and manage that information. So Lissio is a great add-on to our tech stack. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited to hear you just implemented that. Dan, isn't it the case that Darren Root started Lissio?
That is correct.
Yeah. Chris Farrell.
Yeah. So if any of our attendees are familiar with RootWorks, the community, and the man Darren Root, he did start Lissio. So SmartVault, Dawn has mentioned it many times already, so I'm glad we have it here on the list. Document management, client communications. It's a solution for online document storage and secure file sharing, and it also offers branded client portal for communication with clients. Dawn, what's special about SmartVault that you think is really great, and that's why you use it?
Well, one of my biggest problems that I have had historically is people wanting, and this is historical people, wanting printed copies. Okay, I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to buy a house, I need the last 3 years tax returns, blah, blah, blah. And we're printing them and putting them in an envelope and mailing them, and they're not going to pay for that. So we really love the fact that we could use SmartVault as the first introduction to the first app that we use with a client by having them upload prior year data or whatever the case may be. That's their first introduction to an app with us. And so the fact that you can print actually from any tax software, you can print into SmartVault because you can print through a SmartVault, what's called a SmartVault inbox. So even if it doesn't directly integrate with your tax software, you can still use that platform and use an inbox. It's awesome. So we're able to do that. We're able to also, again, send either through Right Signature or DocuSign. Either way, we chose DocuSign to be able to send those 8879. So SmartVault ends up being that's where we put all of our documents. We always know where to find things. We restrict clients from uploading to certain folders because then they start uploading all over the place and then you'll go crazy. So you have to have a system in place. You have to understand what you want your system to be. But again, I just love that I can be on my phone. If I decide to want to answer somebody's question, if I'm not working, I can just pop on the app, open up their tax return, answer their question via text or email, whatever, and move on. They get their answer and I can move on. So, and I do want to just note that, yes, there is a little bit of overlap with Lissio and Carbon. So Alice, my whole thing about apps is a lot of apps, you're able to do multiple things with this one app. Sometimes those additional features, because Carbon's meant to be a practice workflow management tool for your workflow. Liscio is meant to be the client communication that maybe gets them away from Carbon emails, right? To maybe stop the email chain, but rather capture things in more of a, almost like a Slack with your clients with Liscio. So I wanted to just make that note because Alice asked about that. And that's sometimes why we have to be really smart about what we're going to use our apps for. Because Liscio does gather documents, but it's not necessarily meant to be a portal, right? Where SmartVault's more, you've got documents that are stored there, you're going to have them. You can pull them from SmartVault and send out a notice, some kind of a notification through Liscio. But Liscio isn't meant to be document storage. It's not what it was built for. It's built for client communication. So when you're making these decisions, just keep that in mind as you're going through.
Thank you so much. All right. Next up, ADP, the big guys.
You all right?
Dan.
And at the top of this, and this guy, I'm glad you brought that up, Don, because it's a good point. One of the things we should note is that the apps we've collected here are not meant to be a single tech stack that you would implement at your firm, right? With in all of these cases, there are other tools that are just as good, that have different capabilities. Maybe take whatever the category is in a slightly different direction. So it's worth noting we're not proposing these as a single set of apps that you would use that'll solve all your needs. You got to look at what does your firm do, who do you work with, how do your clients work, what tools you're already using, and then work your apps in through that. These are just ones we know our panel of experts liked a lot. That's why one of the reasons we're making a point of sort of mentioning other apps as we go along, similar apps, is to give you a sense of the breadth and depth of your options. You got a lot of choices out there, and I know Dawn and Ronica are going to talk in a little bit about how you do things like pick your apps, figure out your tech stack, know the right ones for you and for your practice and that sort of thing. But before we do that, I should be talking about this app in particular, ADP, HR and Payroll. This is a good example. There are lots of payroll and HR apps out there. We know a lot of people work with ADP. They work great with accountants. They offer a lot of great integrations. ADP, they've been around, they're tried, trusted, and they are always on the cutting edge with technology. They're constantly adding to their tools, improving them. So this is an app that we know a lot of people use and a lot of people value. A lot of small businesses in particular work with ADP. So it's worth having. Dawn, I think you use it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's just really funny that everybody votes for the apps that I use. It's not, listen, I didn't pay anybody to vote along with me. I will just say, I'll tell you why. I mean, ADP's been around for a long, long time. I love their Accountant Connect portal. Just makes everything so much easier for me to be in there. And I do see somebody had maybe a little bit of challenge with ADP. And I will tell you, the improvements that they've made, even over the last 2 years, which isn't a very long time, adding the Accountant Connect portal, what they have in there is the ability to do what's called a service request. I don't know about you guys, but there have been payroll providers that you send a notice because they're doing the full service payroll. I don't want to do payroll. That's why I choose ADP. I need somebody to do the payroll. I don't want to do it. But I want to just make mention that they have this service request functionality where you can upload a document, and if they're handling the payroll, obviously, they won't just do it for all your clients if they're not using ADP. Like, that'd be silly. But you would take that notice that came to the client and upload it through this service request, and a person gets assigned to it, and they manage that notice, and they get back to you. Either they say, well, we're missing X, Y, and Z, or they're saying, you know what, we've already got it into the tax team. They're already looking into it. We'll get back to you. So you're able to monitor notices, which has been one thing that makes me crazy. When a full service provider, you send this notice maybe via email, and there's services out there that's how you send those notices, and they go into what I consider a black hole. So ADP, having me be able to do that. The second thing is they have a great partner program. Now, I've been somebody who believes in commissions, and I'll tell you why. When I'm managing that notice and getting it to the service request, or we're onboarding a new client to ADP, and we're handling maybe state and local registrations or whatever we're doing, ADP will pay us a commission for that referral. That will account for, I don't charge the clients for maybe some maintenance that we have to handle and deal with the client, because ADP pays me a commission. So I actually will get paid so that the client doesn't have to pay me. We let ADP pay us. And so those are the two reasons, but the Accountant Connect functionality is phenomenal. It has the HR tools, it has the workers' comp pay as you go, set it and forget it. I never want to deal with that either. So for me, that's just for me. If you're somebody who loves payroll and you love doing payroll, don't let me bring you down. They do have a wholesale platform. You could do it. It's totally fine, but that's just why we chose ADP. And again, the timesheets sync with it. Giraffe is now syncing and working with ADP. They've got some benchmarking tools, which are awesome. They have I could be here forever on it. again, to me, it's more about the value that I can add to my clients through the tools that ADP provides, not just, hey, let's process payroll this week. It's just so much more than that.
Right, and I wanted to, at this juncture, just float up a question from the audience, which was, do you have any tips for a smaller time and billing app for a smaller firm that maybe you've had experience with, Dawn?
Well, I mean, I'm a firm of 4. At one point, I was a firm of 10, but I'm a firm of 4. And we use QuickBooks Time Tracking, again, formerly T-Sheets, and we sync that right to QBO and do our billing right out of QBO. And I probably spend maybe 20 minutes on a Monday doing my billing. It's rapid fire. The time's already in there. I go ahead, send it. I mean, I sent one earlier today on a job we just finished, and they paid it within 15 minutes. So for me, it's like I don't feel like I need this fancy time and billing tool because I have QuickBooks Time, which is very cost effective, and then QBO, again, also cost effective, especially if you're an accountant, and you can send that time into your billing. That's just me. Again, there's a lot of others there's a bunch of other kind of time slips and some other solutions out there that you can use. For me, I say keep it simple.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dawn. So I have a payments app in here. Now there are so many payments apps, of course, and there are the big ones and then the little guys. And the reason I included Melio is because it's not that well known, but the accountants who do use it, they did say that they really did like it. So it's a payments app, does AP and AR. It's a vendor contractor invoicing and payment app. And just like Dan was saying earlier, part of the point of categorizing these apps is to show you this is one app in this category, but if you haven't thought about this category or touched this category yet, this is just to get you started down the path of thinking about it. Okay, and now we're going to go into discussion with Dawn on a broader level on technology stack and thoughts on apps. So we'll just do a quick polling question and we'll jump into that conversation. All right, so you should see the polling question on your screen now. It says, what method of finding new apps is most valuable to you currently? Recommendations from colleagues, professional associations and groups, social media, podcasts, blogs, webinars, and other educational resources. So again, just pick the thing that closely resembles whatever your choice is and click submit. I'm going to leave this on the screen, and we're going to start our conversation now, because we can start with this question.
Can I just throw out one thing real quick, Veronica? Yeah. Just real quick. If you're not seeing this polling question, I know 1 or 2 people had trouble seeing the polling questions earlier. If you're not seeing it, try refreshing your browser. That should pop the polling question up to the front. Or if you're viewing your browser window in full screen mode, just take it off full screen mode, and that will usually pop the polling question up. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that out because I know we had a couple of people who had issues with it. I'll turn it over to you.
And Ranica, there's one person that just asked a question. Michelle just asked about QuickBooks Time having a WIP report. Carbon does have time tracking right within Carbon. That would be a better tool for you to use rather than a separate using the QuickBooks timesheets. So as far as WIP and time management on a project and those kind of things, that's embedded into Carbon. Just throwing it out there.
No, thank you. Thank you for answering that question. So I just want to first start by asking, we've said tech stack a lot. Could you quickly define what a tech stack is and then tell us, for you, how do you build yours?
Sure. So a tech stack basically means the apps that you're using to run your firm, to do your job, and to provide your services. And obviously we have things that are simple like QuickBooks or Intact or different various accounting solutions that we need. We're accountants, hello. So anyway, but a tech stack really is building a process for yourself. Now the way I approach it is because I coach softball, so I'm gonna make some reference to softball or baseball. You can be baseball as well. But in that game, there are positions that are played. And in our firms, we have positions, and the positions are actually apps. There's things that we do like practice workflow, time tracking if that's something you need, quoting if that's something you need, lead gen like Keep, a solution like that. So there are certain positions that you play in a game, but the best part is you got to pick the best players for that position. You've got to fill every position. You can't just say, oh, well, all right, in softball, we won't have a first baseman for this game because who's going to catch the ball at first base if they don't play first base? And guess what? If you're running a practice, you need practice management. So I build my tech stack with the thought process of here are all the positions I need. My tax software. I need for tax resolution, I need tax transcript, and I use Tax Help software or Canopy. Those are 2 tools that we need, and that's what apps are. So if you think about your practice and all the positions that are played in order for you to run your business, onboarding, documents, e-signatures. You've got to pick the right player. And that's what we're teaching you today, or recommending to you today, are the various apps that will fill those positions in your firm. And that's how I look at it. And so I know if I'm missing an app, and I'm like, okay, I do tax representation. I need something like Canopy or Tax Help software, and I don't have those tools, and I'm calling the IRS for transcripts. Shame on me, okay? Because that position needs to be filled, and we know right now, if you're a tax practitioner, the IRS is killing us. Okay, they're killing the accounting industry because you can't get through to them. So having tools like Canopy or Tax Help software to be able to pull transcripts, so you don't have to call them. There's another solution. A lot of people there's a little bit of, I don't know, up and down out there in the social media about NQ, where you get into you call this 1-800 number and you put in your little code and it kind of pushes you to the front of the line. That might make you mad, but I'll tell you what, if I got to get through to my clients, so I'm not billing them, I'm going to get the tools I need. And so that's kind of how I go through my thought process of what a tech stack is and what are the apps that I need to run my firm efficiently, effectively. And of course, integration is really important to me.
Right. And so over the years that you've been using apps, Dawn, I'm sure that you've phased apps out as well. What brings you to that point where you're like, this is not working for me anymore, I need a new solution? Can you talk us through some examples of those?
Yeah, a lot of times it will be as we bring on an app and we're starting to use it and we're like, boy, okay, I know I have to give it time, right? Because listen, people, you're going to invest time. If you're going to, get an app and implement an app, it's going to take time. But I promise you right now, and that's why this webinar is such a great time, you've got 3 months to fill your lineup. You have 3 months to get it figured out. So what happens is sometimes you implement an app where you say, yeah, I'm going to do this trial, I'm going to try it out. And everyone in the firm, we talk about it, we have weekly meetings, and we're like, what do you think about this? How's the thing going with this app or that app? And if we find that it's more painful than the original pain, then we know we need to push it aside. And you know what? Maybe we're looking at the wrong tool. Maybe it's either too complicated or too simple. It could be one or the other. And so that's kind of how we evaluate it. And listen, if we got to cut bait, we got to cut the line, let the fish go, then that's what we have to do. But the solution can't be more painful than the problem.
Absolutely. Now, have you ever adopt apps or software that your clients are using when you take on a new client and they're using software and you're like, or do you ask your clients to adopt the things that you're using, or how does that work for you?
Right. I always meet my clients where they are. That's always been my motto. I'm going to meet you where you are, and I'm going to say, okay, we'll evaluate the app. Maybe we don't know the app, or they'll come to maybe a client that comes to us and they're using Gusto or they're using Paychex, and we promote ADP. We recommend ADP. But we don't have a problem if they've been using Gusto and they love it, or they're using Paychex or Intuit, QuickBooks Online, Payroll, or whatever it may be. We meet them where they're at, and if things are running smoothly, then we don't have to fix something that's not broken. And so we do try to have them, especially if they don't have apps, which a lot of times the clients don't have apps. We'll recommend them, and we'll try to get them to onboard with various apps because they really need them for their business, not only just to work with us, but to work within their own business. So I find that meeting the client where they're at, don't just be like, okay, this client uses, forget it, we only use ADP. That's unreasonable, right? It's not like we can't figure out how to use Gusto. We can. So anyway, so we just kind of recommend our solutions, and if they don't have one, then we implement our solutions. And if they do have them, we do give them the chance to say, hey, this is how we use it, this is why we use it, and maybe it makes sense.
Awesome. And with the last year and a half living through COVID and working through COVID, did this time reveal any gaps or new needs for your firm that you had to fill with software and apps? How did that affect you?
Sure. So we were pretty hardcore solid on most of our processes when COVID hit. We were already not meeting with clients any longer. They were either, they just didn't want to do it anymore. They just wanted to either get us their documents through SmartVault, they would drop them off, they would mail them, the combination of how they bring stuff to us. But what we realized over this last tax season was that, we want to find a better way to communicate with them. I feel really bogged down with, I've got texts, I've got maybe direct messages on Facebook, I've got all these different places that people are trying to communicate with me. And I found that I would read maybe the direct message and then I'd forget that there was a direct message because I'm not always in Facebook and on Messenger. Or they would send, the emails would be overwhelming, or text and I'm on 2 different phones, or I see somebody out. So if I can just have one app, and that's why we implemented Lissio. We decided that we need to put everything in one spot so that we could, they want you to close the polling question. So they want to see me. They want to see me, Ranica, because I'm all about the action. Right?
Sorry about that. I didn't even realize you were taking over the screen. Really quick, I'm just going to go ahead and say that 40% are saying more people are saying recommendations from colleagues is the top way that they pick apps.
Right.
I'm going to close this down so that we can get back to your face. Okay.
Yeah. Whatever. I don't know. Our tech support says we're fine. It's all good. Anyway, so that's kind of just how we do it. That's just our process, and we decided that Lissio for us over the pandemic was something we were kind of missing. I felt like we were all over the place with that, and that's why we brought it in. But I just find that getting yourself to be as mobile as possible. If you still have a local tax software, like tax software on your server in your office or on your desktop, if you're a sole prop or even just 2 people, is to get yourself into a hosting solution so that you can have access anytime, anywhere to your books. That's probably one thing, Ranica, when you ask me about the clients. If I have a client that comes in and they're still working locally on their desktop, they have to pick one of 2 things. They either have to use a hosting solution. We happen to use Recur 360. And then if they don't need that, then we say, okay, then we're going to use QBox. And QBox is basically a way to sync locally to a file. I just don't ever want to not be able to get in the file. The kind of the drawback on QBox is that you can't be in multi-user mode. That's kind of frustrating. So hosting to me is always the best solution, and that's where we try to bring them. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we do have lots of questions from the audience. Dan, I'm going to ask you if you could sort of look through those and pick some ones that you think are good and float them to the top. I'm going to go through a couple last apps while we do that, just to point them out. They're non-accounting related-ish, so I just left them to the end. Our readers liked GoodNotes for note-taking, and I have a picture there just to show you how it works, and it's for iPad. And it's just, comes with a pen. You can take notes, annotate, edit, etc. like that. So that was quite a popular one. And then this one, which was new to me, Relay. It's a walkie-talkie system that you could give to everybody, put them on their desk, and you can just beep them. And it connects to smartphones if you needed to do that, and it turns your smartphone into that walkie-talkie feature. If you guys remember Sprint back in the day, they had those
Yes.
kind of like that. So that was a really interesting one way to communicate between staff for certain projects and certain times. Obviously, you don't want to be beeping people, just random times, but it's a managed system. Okay, so we're going to go to Q&A with our audience, and we just for the CP, we do have to get through the last polling question as well. So, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected tech adoption at your practice? It has accelerated adoption. Adoption has remained the same, or plans for new technology have slowed down for the time being. So just go ahead and pick your answer, and we'll go to audience questions here. Or Dan, did you want to shout out some apps maybe that the audience has sent in, or do you want to?
Well, I jump in real quick. Oh, sorry. So though a couple people have asked about the hosting solution. There's a couple that I use. One is called Quarium, and that's specifically for QuickBooks hosting. Great tool. As a matter of fact, it's part of Fishbowl. It's a new part of Fishbowl. So that's a really great one for just QuickBooks. But if you're looking for the full service, Recur, R-E-C-U-R, Recur 360. I typically go through a company called Out of the Box Technology. I go through them to get all of that set up because they just know what they're doing. But yeah, so Recur 360 is one I just wanted because people were asking. And then QBox basically allows you to sync and kind of like steal their data file from their QuickBooks on their computer and put it onto your computer. You work on it, and then you say, okay, I'll give it back to them now. So it's just really an exchange of the data. But again, it's only one person in it at a time. If they don't close it and they've locked it, you can't get to it. You've got to think hosting. That's where you need to be.
Gotcha.
Ahead,
John,
sorry.
while we're Yeah, no, it's good because actually what I was going to suggest is a couple of questions people were asking you to for some of the names of other ones you'd mentioned. So I thought we'd do those first, list a bunch of apps, and then we'll go back because there are some other questions to get into. But someone, the queue jumping app, queue jumping, I'm in quotes, the one that allows you to get yourself to the head of the phone call. What's the name of that one?
Oh, yes, that's called NQ, ENQ. So ENQ. Is a great app. You get like a license number and you call this 1-800, whether you're calling the individual line, the business line, collections, you dial a certain number, put in your code, and it tells you your estimated wait time. It knows typically it's 3 minutes, but lately it's been 15 to 20 because the IRS is just sucking right now, but whatever. So it's really a great tool. People are kind of battling about it, but my whole point is if I got to call the IRS, it's because I maybe have a collections issue or whatever, but don't be calling the IRS for transcripts. Get one of those other tools. You're going to save yourself so much time and you're going to look like a hero. So call nq.com. Okay. So I think somebody put it, Adam put that in the answer in the question section there. So it's a great app.
All right. And with that, I'm going to go run quick through a bunch of the apps that people mentioned. We got a great selection of them here. Someone mentioned Voxer, Voxer, as a good alternative to Relay, the app that Veronica mentioned. Someone talked about Genius Scan, which converts photos to PDFs. There are a bunch of questions about different password managers. I should say, in this, for purposes of today's webinar, we're not really, while we're not going to weigh different apps against each other. We don't want to get into that today. So we're not going to go into the features. And one of the things to know about different apps is different apps perfectly good for their purposes, but may not match your purposes, right? So you need to do some research on all these and say, okay, does this match how I'm using my apps? For the password things, does this match how I use my passwords or how I use the internet or how my staff does? So with all these, you're going to unfortunately need to do a little bit of research on your own to differentiate between when we mentioned that there's 2 or 3 apps that does a particular thing. You need to look at all of them and see which are the ones that fit your use case the best, because they'll all have slightly different variations, slightly different flavors, and they do slightly different things. So we can't really tell you which app is going to work best for you necessarily. We can tell you these are all ones we've heard of, we know are good, we know people are using on a daily basis. So we're unfortunately not going to be able to pick them for you, but we can definitely put you in the right direction to look at. Someone also mentioned 1Password, number 1Password. That's another password protection app. A lot of people talked about DocuSign, how much they love it. They also use Adobe Sign. Someone mentioned Canopy for workflow, particularly in tax, I know. A lot of people double down on SmartVault. They like SmartVault, Dropbox. 3 or 4 people mentioned Slack as a great tool. For inter-office communication, for tracking workflow, for all kinds of things. Someone mentioned SAP Concur for expenses. Their favorite app is My Business Manager, which provides a range of business advisory services for accountants and bookkeepers. Someone mentioned Dext, which is another, the old Receipt Bank, or previously was Receipt Bank, and now has all kinds of extra capabilities, but they do a lot of receipt wrangling, which is crucial. Bill.com. I hope everybody knows Bill.com. They're sort of central portion of this huge web of apps that they work with. PaySimple from ADP, the 10% app for meditation. I mean, this is one of those things we should mention. There's a whole world of apps we're not really even touching on. We mentioned note-taking. People have mentioned Evernote is another one that people like. Let's see, what else? I just want to make sure. A couple people mentioned sorry.
Just really quick, I want to close the polling question so that it's closed. Sorry.
Just give everybody a final chance. If you haven't seen the polling question, again, refresh your browser. That'll pop it up, usually to make sure you get it, because you do need to get all these for credit. So go ahead and count them down. If you haven't answered, please do so.
Yes, I'm just going to count it down. That way it's done. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, as the cars honk outside my window.
They're saying, we love apps. We love apps.
And of course, more than half are saying COVID has accelerated tech adoption, which is what I would have thought.
No doubt.
Sorry, Dan, please go ahead if there are other apps that you wanted to shout out. But there's one question I also wanted to.
It worked perfectly, actually. We got right to the last of the app. Someone mentioned Snippet as an app that they use, and that was the last one. So now we can go back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was just eyeing the clock and being like, oh, there's so many good questions. So, Dawn, Tawny is asking, could you elaborate more on your quote process? Because she struggles with providing quotes. More often than not, it ends up, basically, she just wants to know more about your process.
Sure. Yeah. So, and quoting is really important, I think, especially in the tax world. For me, I bill by the form. So what I do, and I'll just talk tax for a hot second. In tax, what I'll do is I'll take their prior year return, and I'll go through and I have a price for each document, for each schedule that there is. And so, and it's standard. And nobody pays less than $385 for an individual return. I'm not doing, go to H&R Block. I'm sorry, shouldn't have said that. Go wherever you want to have your taxes done. But I set a firm $385 is my minimum individual tax return. So when you go into my tax return, it's $250 for the 1040. It's $100 for the state and $35 people for a tech fee. And so in Quotient, I build each form. I build into the, as you know, they're basically like an item list in Quotient, and I build all out based on what their prior year return was. And guess what it does? It takes the emotion out of quoting. It is what it is. You have these forms in the prior year tax return. This is my quote. Now, it's not, that doesn't mean that's what you're going to be invoiced, but it's a quote based on your prior return. Let's say you bought a rental property. Now, I didn't know about the rental property because it wasn't on the prior year return, and then maybe the client never told me, and all of a sudden, shazam, oh, I forgot to tell you I have a rental property. Okay, well, guess what? That quote's going to be revised by $250 for the Schedule E. And so that's kind of how we monitor it. And then we also, for bookkeeping, let's just say we do pick up a bookkeeping job or a tax resolution job, we bill those by the hour. And so what I do is I say, listen, I think it's going to take, based on what I see and what I know about your project, it's going to take about 20 bookkeeping hours and probably 5 CPA hours. Here's your quote. We will update you every week with where we are in the project. So and we take a retainer always up front. And so we just say, we think it's going to be this. We're going to have you pay us a $5,000 retainer. And we send an invoice every week to say, this is where you're at. Here you go. Here you go. And then when it gets to the point where you've used up your retainer, now you're going to put another amount down. Or if I feel comfortable enough with them, we bill every single week. Because I don't want to wait. I don't want a month from now to send somebody a $10,000 bill when I could be sending them $2,500 bills every week. Then they're at least seeing what kind of volume this work is taking. So that's kind of the process. And I did just want to mention real quick, I do have a podcast called The DM Disruption, and we talk about apps. Go to dawnbrolin.com. You'll see I have my whole tech stack there. You can, certainly ask me questions, shoot me an email, dawn@powerfulaccounting. I will hopefully get a list of these questions, and I'm happy to, answer your questions out on social media or through the podcast or through where Dan and I are going to be doing more podcasts together. So don't freak out if your question didn't get answered, because we can get back to you. Okay, so I just want to say that because there's so many great questions.
And one quick one that we should mention that this has been recorded. There'll be a recorded version of this. You can review it. We'll be sending a link to it. It should be up in about 3 to 5 business days. We'll send you a link to it. Send everybody a link to it so you can share it with colleagues. But people should note if you're watching it, it's not September 21st. It doesn't qualify for CPE. That's all.
Awesome. All right. There are definitely more good questions. So Dawn, thank you for offering to answer them offline later. We will do that for our attendees. To the attendees, well, first to Dawn, thank you so much for being with us. That was an incredible discussion. Thank you. We learned so much. And to our attendees, thank you for being here. We hope to see you on another session very soon. Have a great day, everybody.